All right, we are live. How you doing?
Doing great. It's exciting to be
Awesome.
here again.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I've always enjoyed our talks. I don't think we've talked since I started this channel. So last time we talked was on my other political philosophical channel. Um, yeah. So what's been on your mind with veganism lately?
Uh, Things that come to mind always is how to help people take the time to consider the animals. Uh, how do you reach people who are just thinking about the food they're used to eating and make them consider the experience of that animal that went through that and how to help them care? I know in our discussions offline, we were talking about a bunch of like contentious edge cases. But yeah, really what I'm always thinking about is just how to help people not just take the time to think about the animals, but also to feel that caring is a really nice thing.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think it is that you'd say is holding most people back?
Um, I think it's possibly just not being exposed to the ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, when they are exposed to thinking about animals, they'll feel confronted and be defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was at a vegan picnic on the weekend, and this lovely couple, friends of ours, they were saying that they just never thought about it. And then someone said, "Hey, what about what the animals went through?" And they looked at each other and went vegan together. And she was
Hmm.
making the point that there's got to be a lot of people out there that, as soon as they think about it, would care and not want to
Mm-hmm.
hurt. And so, what's holding people back? I think there's a lot of people that we just have to reach that otherwise would not have had someone ask a question in a way that's like caring and gives them the time to pay attention to it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think so. I think that's part of the problem is people just not hearing about it or thinking about it. And I think maybe the other part of the problem is when it is talked about, it's usually talked about in, I guess extreme's not the best word, but just it's talked about to the extent that those of us that already are aware and are making this vegan choice, it's to this extent that seems extreme to others. So it's almost like we need a way to have conversations with people that are not vegan about animals suffering and various ideas for how to prevent that suffering without it being presented as a this is what veganism is and you have to go from your normal life now to doing all of this stuff.
Yeah, I like to say that every vegan meal is a life saved. So if you just
Mm-hmm.
try one more vegan meal here and there, you're saving lives. And then I hope most people would think, oh, well, I probably want to not kill any lives. But yeah, every step in the right direction is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird, and I guess most people don't like confrontation, so that's part of it. Is if you go to somebody and you're talking to them about something they do, it's tough because I'm sure there are probably some non-vegan, philosophically minded people that will like discuss ideas like that with each other, and then they won't feel threatened because it's not like one of the people talking does this action that they're calling wrong. So yeah, I think that's part of it. Another part of it is I don't know if people feel like they care enough to take the time to look into things, maybe due to having busy lives. I don't know if that makes somebody a bad person necessarily. I just like some of us, like I feel like me and you are people that like to research things, look into things, analyze things, and a lot of people just that's just not how their brains work, and so they aren't thinking. Like if somebody were to discuss a philosophical side of veganism with them, they would just view it as maybe boring, and they'll just go with the flow of whatever the average person is doing. And I don't know if those people, I don't know if it's not worth reaching those people, or how we can know who those people are in advance?
So I didn't come to it through philosophy. I started spending a lot of time thinking about a kinder world. Um, I was exposed to metta meditation, which is where you just spend a bit of time each day caring about the people in your life. And then when your caring has grown, you then expand that care. And I was just at a point where I was like, yeah, I want a world where everyone is nice to each other. And
Mm-hmm.
after a little while of that, I just wanted niceness for every conscious being. Um, so, yeah, not everyone wants to engage in philosophical discussions. Maybe getting them to care more might be good. Maybe getting them to have a laugh at some absurdities in a way that happily shows them a clearer way of thinking about things. I think there's different ways to reach every kind of person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting. Well, one thing I've noticed, and you might disagree with me on this, but one thing I've noticed within at least the louder people talking on social media about veganism is there's kind of this push of if you're a true vegan, then you're just for total animal liberation. You push for people to become vegan, and that's it. And then animal rights stuff like welfareism is for other people to do. Like that's if you do that, you're not necessarily a vegan, or at least it's just different. And I feel like maybe just in my old age, as time goes by, I just look at the different things that seem to work, and it almost seems to me like that's going to be what changes people's minds is all the people that know what veganism is. They know it exists. They've heard what they've heard, and they haven't shifted over. If a lot of those people, like let's imagine that's like 90% of say the US, or more than 90%, if like 50% of those people, and probably even more than that, would want factory farming ended, but they feel like they need to eat meat to survive or something silly like that, then I feel like if us vegans had more of a push on working together with what the majority of people want, that would be progress. Then that will these ideas will make people start thinking. So if we have people that are not vegan fighting for legal changes for like factory farmed ideas, fighting for bigger cages, fighting for no cutting off of tails and teeth of pigs, these kind of things, then as they're fighting for it and as we're getting change, these people will start thinking and go, actually, now that we've made this big change, I actually don't want to eat them at all, even if they are raised well, and they'll get it in their mind. But yeah.
Yeah, I know a number of people who took that route. They tried to not necessarily make legal changes. I think they're doing that now, but they were trying to get ethically sourced meat and ethically sourced dairy. And as they were trying to find that, they realized that it's impossible to kill something kindly, um,
Yeah.
or it was so hard to find a dairy farm which doesn't take the kids away from their parents, um, that yeah, they just decided it was better not to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I really wish there was a way to know, but it'd be so interesting to see a world where, if just for like a few months or for a year or something, if all vegan activists focused on like welfarist ideas instead of focusing on trying to convert people to veganism. Or I guess it could go kind of hand in hand, like a quick little like, hey, interested in veganism? And then they go, no, I need to eat meat. And then you instantly just go, okay, well, if you need to do it to be healthy, then how about don't eat all the unhealthy stuff, but also are you okay with eating this meat from free range, whatever? And then if you did that for like a year, I'd be curious to see how huge of a change we would see, like how many more vegans we would have because of people like what we were just talking about, where once they get it in their mind, they want to look for the more ethically sourced stuff. They might turn full vegan. But even if not that, I wonder if there would be such a push by the general public to want politicians to advocate for legal changes in factory farming and stuff. It, Yeah, it's so weird. I truly, I cannot grasp what's in the mind of the vegan activists I talk about or talk to. Somebody did a reaction video to a video I had
Do you
made.
mean the abolitionists?
What's that? Yes, yes. Which it's
Well,
complicated because like I'm an abolitionist in a sense, in the sense that I want the abolition, but I also I can't imagine not fighting for all the details. Like for example, I want drugs to be legal, but when places are deciding if they're going to legalize pot, I'm not going to say no, don't legalize pot. You have to legalize all or nothing. I'll go, yeah, let's legalize the pot. And then when they go for cocaine, I won't be like, nope, no cocaine unless you do heroin too. I'll be like, I think this should be legal, therefore I will fight for it. I'll have conversations with people about it and change it. So, yeah.
so I am for animal rights as a pragmatist, but I am not comfortable entirely with it. For example, if we were talking about human slavery,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, some of us were thought the idea was abhorrent. Humans should have respect, and anyone who's not respecting another human, they should be confronted with the need to consider those others. Then saying, "Oh yes, we're going to just say it's okay for you to have the slaves that you don't whip, but the slaves that you do whip, well, that one should stop." I think I think I can see how people find that a very uncomfortable position to take. And
Mm-hmm.
I take that position uncomfortably. Yes, I think that the worst animal agriculture things should be improved or stopped. Um, and I acknowledge that everyone's not going to stop harming those animals tomorrow. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said before, hey, every vegan meal is a life saved. Really, I want to like sit down and take that person to see what the animals go through and let them be filled with love and care. But if I'm not able to do that, then I have to make the pragmatic choices. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I also understand the drive in which people want us to respect and consider the rights of the animals being abused.
Yeah. By rights, do you mean the abolitionist rights or the welfarist rights?
I meant the rights to not be killed and not
Oh,
be,
okay.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, well, because that's the thing that seems to get lost is um, people seem to view the welfarist ideas as welfarist ideas, where the abolition is rights, and they seem to, a lot of people, anyways, seem to ignore the fact that the welfarist ideas are protecting rights. Like we should each have a right to not be punched in the face. We should have the right to not have our ears cut off. So if people started farming certain humans, and for whatever reason that was thought of as okay, if also along with that they were doing these various different things, each of those rights would still be right. So you'd want the overall right to not be harmed, but then if you cannot get that right to be passed as like a law, then I think you would want each of the separate rights to be passed as well. Including your example of slavery. Oh yeah, what I was going to say was, so I had made this. I put this video up that had a clip from a conversation I had, where I was talking about how it's kind of hard when you look at examples of what we currently have. So if you had like a hypothetical where farmers started cutting off the legs of their cows, cauterizing their wounds, and then putting the cow on a shelf and like injecting them with stuff that will fatten them up. But the cow is conscious this whole time. It's just sitting on a shelf and it's miserable because it's not walking around. So it's worse than the situation we have now. My question to her was, should we not only fight for total abolition, but also should we fight to have a law saying that you can't cut off the legs of the cows? And she was saying that that we should not fight for that. We should not fight for their legs to not be cut off. We fight for the total abolition. And if that takes 50 years, it takes 50 years. If it takes 1,000, it takes 1,000. And in her mind, in some sense or another, there's no point to fight for that torture to stop until it all stops at once.
I think uh, the mindset that fights for that is worried that we'll get to a point where the leg cutting torture is taken off, and then people will say, yes, all the animals can walk around in the sun, so now it's okay to kill them. Um, the research shows that, like you were saying before, if people take steps in the right direction, they actually become more compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
But abolitionists are often worried that if things seem a little better, I mean, this happens sometimes. People are like, "Oh yeah, it's free range eggs. I can now eat as many as I want," and maybe they're just not thinking about all the chicks that get chopped up. But
Mm-hmm.
um, many of those people will, at some point, think, "Oh yes, I'm a person who cares about the chickens," and then when they see the little newly born chicks just going through the macerators, um, they're more open to care than as if they had just been buying caged chickens and not at all been caring about them.
Mm-hmm.
So that belief that people have to care completely, otherwise it's just surface changes. While I can understand that, it's just not supported by the data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's I guess that works out for my position that it's not supported by the data. But I would say even if it was, I mean, I guess in a sense we should follow what happens to work, but it's also complicated to know if that's right or wrong. Like in my mind, like let's say that it made people, let's say it actually, the data show that it did make people more comfortable to consume free range eggs because they're free range. I would say it's still good to fight for the progress, to get laws in place preventing harm. If anything, if you have a sentient being that can suffer, and we want to have laws to where they cannot suffer, then any laws in place that makes them not suffer is good. And if that leads people to consuming something like free range eggs, then if we have an argument for why they shouldn't consume those, then we should keep sharing these arguments. We should keep saying, okay, we're glad these laws are in place, but to try to convince this person, maybe they don't know about the chicks being ground up, and we can show them that. And if somebody is going to stop at a certain point and say this is good enough, they're they're going to do that anyways. Having the welfarist idea isn't something you can really stop. If your welfarist ideas will lead to something like free range chickens, which somebody's against, even without bringing those welfarist ideas in, anybody can have free range chickens as long as that's not illegal. So they can have them in their backyard. So the only benefit I can see at all is it seems like maybe the abolitionist vegans want to maybe trick the people into, if they see this horrible thing happen, the worst of the worst, they'll go vegan. And so I want to trick them into going vegan, because if they don't see the worst of the worst and they see welfarist ideas, they'll think that's enough. So they're really only concerned about people that they think that need to be tricked instead of truly convinced.
Um, I don't know if I'd label it as strict. I definitely know some people that I think would not eat animals if they only had uh, factory farmed meat as an option. But
Mm.
because of, I'm not sure if the farms have like just done a PR stunt and made it seem like those animals are treated better, or maybe there are places where the animals aren't tortured as much. Um, so I know some people who eat those animals where if they didn't have those ethical options, they would definitely not be eating any animals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Um,
I'm sure they exist. I haven't met any, I assume people that want to consume meat to the level where they will, if it's ethically treated, they will just go with the most ethically treated, and therefore, if there's no ethically treated, then they'd have to go with that. But if there are, then they'd go for the most ethically treated. So
Yeah, this is why, like, with a question like this, it's really good to look at the research, because there will be people of all different kinds. There'll be people who respond differently to every situation. And maybe if you can tell which kind of person's there, you can take a different response. But if you're trying to work out your general approach, then we have to see how do most people respond. And
yeah.
most people will get better when they're given um, options that are less suffering, and then they'll keep walking in that direction, less and less suffering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it seems like a lot of people are followers and just kind of go with how laws change. It seemed like, for example, when gay marriage passed in the early 2010s, right before that, it seemed like the majority of the U.S. was against it. But once the law passed, it seemed like even all my religious friends I knew were like, "Oh yeah, I mean this thing in the Bible, it's maybe misinterpreted, or the Bible says it, but here in real life, you know." And it seemed like as this change happened, then everybody kind of followed along with it. And so, not that this is a good thing necessarily. I don't like the idea of people just blindly going along with whatever is happening. But I think that would be a benefit for veganism if if uh, if there was talk about laws changing to end factory farming, even if that didn't turn everybody vegan, if it truly ended factory farming, then that would be good for if the world goes, yeah, I want this change to happen because it's happening and I'm going along with it.
I'm not sure if it was the laws or if it was PR, like
Mm.
um, more traditional views were um, being attacked. If somebody said things against gay marriage, they were demonized by many people. Um, you can see it happening today as well. They've taken the same strategy and applied it to other things, that anyone who disagrees with people in that agenda is just completely demonized. There can be no reasonable debate.
Mm.
And you see that within vegan circles, some of them, it gets to the point where it's so obvious that hurting animals is a monstrous thing to do, that within those circles there isn't space to say, oh, I think it's okay to eat them. And can we create a society where everybody or the majority of people um, stand up against animal cruelty? Um, Perhaps if we get into positions of like marketing power, perhaps if we are making more children's television, we run festivals and events, perhaps we can sway enough people, and then the people who disagree uh, don't feel able to speak out until eventually the next generation just takes for granted that veganism's a way.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting. I feel like maybe the main thing holding it back that even sounds like a reasonable argument is probably something like the idea of health. And the reason I find it kind of silly is because it seems like the majority of people are not healthy. The like maybe over 80% of people are overweight and unhealthy. But when you hear the discussions, you either have vegans talking with each other, or you have vegans talking with anti-vegans, or whoever's willing to talk. And almost everybody willing to talk that's not a vegan will focus on the health side of things. So I don't know what the best answer for this is, because truly, everybody that talks against veganism could be people that are more health leaning, and they're just the only ones willing to talk. It's not too often that you see somebody that's a couple 100 pounds overweight debating against veganism, or maybe debating at all. Um, So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we'll have to change with this because we consistently get more and more studies defending veganism, but then there's always different studies for every different type of diet. So it's going to be hard to get people to be willing to say like that they're going to sacrifice it completely. So I almost wonder if it's worth just trying to get people to reduce and have like hopefully veganism can grow as well, but alongside or with veganism can be this idea of cutting back drastically. Yeah, I really don't know.
Um, have you seen the film Game Changers?
Yeah, I just watched that for the first time.
So for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's a sort of documentary, a bunch of elite athletes who either are vegan and they're excelling, or they get their team to try out veganism. The doctors come in and do blood tests, and the sports physiologists come in and do performance tests. And everyone they show is thriving on the vegan diet. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, I guess just more of that in the public consciousness will sway more people in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are some people who've tried a vegan diet and struggled. I'm unsure how many of them just have a physiology that maybe they needed to eat oysters or something. Or perhaps they just didn't have the balance, like the basic things of beans and rice. Or perhaps their body just would have needed to have more seaweed or something. And they didn't have the support or the drive to find out how to make it work. But yeah, when those stories get latched on to by the anti-vegans, then uh, of the thousands of people I know who went vegan and the three who stopped, um, in my world, like it's obvious that veganism's awesome. But if you're an
Mm-hmm.
anti-vegan and you're like looking for the stories of the people who stopped and you're just ignoring all the people who love it and are thriving, then they can craft a narrative that makes that stand out. So we just need to make the truth bigger in everybody's minds.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, and one thing I almost wonder if one thing that should happen within veganism, or at least from vegans, even if we don't label it as veganism, is a talk about health and more of a push with that direction. Because in the sense that even though we want the world to go vegan, I think at least me and you would settle for like kind of like how you were saying, one vegan meal is an animal saved. We'd settle for big reduction. So I almost feel like there should be some kind of a push
I wouldn't settle
for
for that.
what's that?
I wouldn't settle for that. I'd
Oh, not settle for.
yeah,
Or maybe I said settle. By settle, I mean
appreciate it.
be more grateful. Yeah, that's happening versus nothing. But I feel like there should be some kind of a push against maybe something like fast food, taking something simple where anybody that would say they need meat for health, they cannot be referring to anything you could purchase from McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, all these places. And I almost feel like it would be good to have like almost a movement that is pushing to treat that kind of stuff the way that we look at cigarettes. People see cigarettes, almost everybody will like look at cigarettes and go, okay, that's gross. And if somebody's smoking a cigarette, like the majority of people, there's probably at least a lot of people that smoke because they're addicted, but they know people hate smoking, so they'll hide in their garage or their backyard, and they'll treat it as this thing where they're gonna be shamed for it. And I almost feel like we should treat something like fast food in that way, because fast food won't necessarily make people be having vegan meals. But if you take something that's clearly almost the entire industry of a certain topic that's huge, like fast food, everything fast food for the most part, 99.9 more than that percent is factory farmed. They're not having some local farm that has the nicest free range grass area. And so, like, I don't necessarily like the idea of shaming people, but viewing it as this kind of shameful thing where people should hold their friends and family and everybody accountable for, like, hey, let's stay away from this. And I don't know if it's like the body positivity movement or what that makes people unwilling to judge people's diets. But I don't think veganism should strictly be a diet, but I almost feel like it should go hand in hand, and it would be better if vegans focus on their own health and also challenging others, challenge meat eaters about their health.
You were talking about step-by-step reforms. Perhaps there could be laws that require fast food or any restaurant to have at least some percentage of healthy food. I mean,
Mm.
defining what is healthy and unhealthy, that's very contentious. It kind of goes against the free market, but perhaps we can find a way to do that. Or maybe, as you said, friends and family, when they go to a fast food place, we just encourage people to also get a salad or um, what would be a healthy option at a fast food place? I don't know, get some beans and rice along with whatever else you're getting. Have
Mm-hmm.
you read anything by Dr. Greger, like the books like How Not to
Mm-hmm.
Die and How Not to Diet?
Yeah, I own both of those. Yeah, great
Um,
stuff.
so in terms of like healthy living and like longevity and feeling vibrant, um, Dr. Greger advocates very strongly for a plant-based diet, and every single disease that he is treating in that book, he has loads of research and evidence to back up why eating more Brazil nuts will help with this condition, or cranberries will help with this condition, or
Mm-hmm.
cutting out these animal proteins will affect that condition. Um, mm, so perhaps these kind of things, I mean, they do exist, and there's also documentaries about the health benefits of veganism. Maybe we just need a lot more of them, and maybe we
Mm-hmm.
need more YouTube shorts and comic books and uh, just any kind of format just to get these ideas into everybody's minds, not just the documentary and big book readers, but everybody.
Yeah.
My little boy was saying to me the other day, just out of nowhere, he's like, why do people eat fish? And I said, well, we've discussed it a few times. And I said, well, probably in the past, there was a time where people had no food. And so they ate another being, and probably were really sad about hurting the being. But then people just kept doing it. And now people do it without really thinking about it. And he said, he has a couple of books about being kind to the animals. He said, let's
Mm-hmm.
get those books and give them to everyone. And another time we're having the same discussion, and he said, I want to wear vegan clothes all the time. So, like shirts that say, like, be kind to the animals, or um, animals are our friends, not food. And I just thought that was really beautiful that he was aware of just spreading kindness. And yeah, I wonder if every vegan took that as a priority, spread kindness and love, as well as whatever else you're doing. But then I also wonder, non-vegans, if that's something we could get everyone on board with. I think everybody
Mm-hmm.
agrees more kindness and more love and more consideration is a better world. So if everybody was just trying to give that attention, give that time, give that beautiful stories, give that meditation, so that compassion and kindness grows in all of us, I think that would definitely be a great step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So if there's any non-vegans watching this, I hope you and I can both agree that a world where people are kinder, whether it's to animals or non-human animals or just humans, a kinder world is, I hope everyone agrees that's a better world. And I hope we all
Mm-hmm.
become ambassadors for kindness wherever you
Mm-hmm.
can. Try and help people to take time to think about, considering, to feel caring, to see yourself as a more caring person.
Yeah. I think most people do want it. If they were asked about it or if they thought about it, they want kindness. If they hear about somebody being unkind to somebody, like if they hear about a bully or something, they don't like that. If they feel about like if they hear about some issue that happened in some of their country, a bombing or something, they'll feel sad about deaths. I think it's just there's only so much people can focus on, especially if they are part of the problem. They don't want to view themselves as that part of the problem. And so, and I don't know what the answer is, but yeah, almost something like figuring out a way where the people that feel that they need to consume animals, if they could do both, if they could figure out how much they think they need to consume, like a pescatarian. I'm guessing a pescatarian who eats fish and not other meats, they're doing it because they think they need the fish in their diet, and but they also want to be kind to animals, so they're not going to harm any more than they need. I'm guessing pescatarians, at least most of them, probably are health conscious, and they're probably not eating like deep fried fish sticks or something. They're probably not over consuming fish. So maybe there just has to be a way to talk with people that you can't convince to be vegan, um, but keep talking to them about how, like, okay, like if you feel you need this for you and your family and you do this thing, but can you, like, you can eat this meat that you think you need to be healthy, but when you go to eat ice cream, if you don't think you need this to be healthy because it's ice cream and it's unhealthy, can you go for the vegan ice cream? And then also when you're talking to your kids and you say like, hey, we should be kind to animals, like a reason why you wouldn't want to do like catch and release fishing is because you don't want to hurt something just for fun. If you teach your kid to go fishing because you want to teach your kid that this is a healthy thing, and you can't convince that person not to, then it is what it is. But if they're going to put a hook in a fish's mouth and pull it out of the water and then rip that hook out and put it back, then there's this suffering happening just for somebody to have fun. And maybe there's good ways to talk to people like this about topics like this, to where they can be compassionate people working towards kindness, even if they don't feel the need to be as kind as me or you would be to and about animals.
I have three things that I'd like to say. Um, you mentioned pescatarians, but it's also relevant to anyone who thinks they need to eat animal products to be healthy. Um, the philosopher Peter Singer, he explored like how much awareness different animals have. So if we could evaluate how much suffering is caused, then perhaps we could choose things where less suffering is caused. So a lot of people who don't eat animals fairly confident that plants have no central nervous system, so have no experience, and so they don't actually suffer. You can pull a carrot out of the ground, it can dry up and die, and it's oblivious to it. Its whole family could be ripped up around it. The carrot is just sitting there being a carrot. Whereas if you do that to a lamb, it's traumatic. Um, so by evaluating how aware different things are, um, can be a nice analysis to see what decisions you think are acceptable. And they found bivalves, so oysters and clams and mussels. They have such a limited nervous system that you'd have to be putting some kind of faith to think that they are conscious and aware. Their nerves literally just respond to make a muscle contract when they're touched. So if someone really feels that they need to eat fish or some other animals, advocating them to eat oysters and other bivalves might be an alternative that some people would love.
Mm-hmm.
Then my second response to what you were saying is you were saying that advocating caring, people might get defensive when they feel like they're part of the problem. So at least for me, when I was exposed to kindness meditation, veganism wasn't even in the picture. I just thought kindness is great. I'm going to spend some time every day rehearsing kindness and imagining a world where everyone's kind and imagining myself being that person. And a month in, I had forgiven all the people that hurt me, and I was feeling so much more positive towards everyone. And then a little while later, I was just feeling all this love towards all the animals as well. And then it hit me, oh wow, I'm hurting these animals. Uh, there's no way that they would say, yes, please eat me, please take my kids away. And so I got to this point of caring, and then it was very easy to then see them. So I think as we promote caring, we shouldn't confront people with the places where they're not caring. Maybe there's a time and a place for that. But in general, I think we should just be promoting caring. Everyone's on board with caring. Just grow the love, grow the caring intention. And as people care more, they're more ready to consider others.
Mm-hmm.
And then my third response to what you're saying is I was thinking if somebody does actually believe that eating animal products is beneficial, um, I had this thought experiment. I wanted them to ask themselves if they were vegan compared to eating a healthy vegan compared to eating animal products, how much benefit does that bring them? And try and put some value to it. And then ask themselves how many animals are they going to eat during their lifetime to get that benefit. And I'm imagining most people aren't aware that it's thousands of animals that they kill. And if they do spend some time to just rationally evaluate it, the perhaps benefit they get from eating them versus ending thousands of lives and causing thousands of suffering experiences. I hope most people, when they see it on the scale like that, would realize that it's really not uh, a fair trade off. It's an incredibly selfish trade off, especially given that um, most vegans say they feel better after going vegan.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I really like that. I like all those points. Yeah, yeah, it's tricky. I If I had to guess, when people say they try veganism and then stop, part of what's happening is probably like a withdrawal from addiction. Because I know, like when I ate meat, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so when I went vegan for like a year and a half, and then at some point, I actually just missed animal products so much that even though I had the philosophical side of it, I felt like it was wrong. I gave in and did things that I thought were horrible, and I ate meat again, and then I went back to being vegan again. And the majority of the times that I went back and forth, the biggest issue was like cheese. I just felt like a strong addiction to it. And so I'm guessing a lot of people people talk about listen to your body, and they'll feel if their body feels good or not. Is like you feel good when you get this garbage out of your system and you start eating healthier things, and your body starts feeling great. But then we also have this love and desire for dopamine, and so sadly, the unhealthy foods will make us feel great, and we'll miss the feelings they give. And so yeah, that's kind of why it's tricky. That would have to be my guess. I believe Sam Harris tried out veganism for a little bit, and he said he could just tell that his body worked better on meat. And I just remembered, who was it? Doctor Clapper, Michael Clapper, was talking about how like we, in a sense, can be like addicted to meat. So when it's not in our system, we just have this craving that makes us, if we feel bad, it's because we're feeling bad that we have this craving.
Um, a counter to that, or a perhaps solution, um, is that our bodies crave things that it knows is a solution. So I had a few years where I was really into health food. I didn't eat any fried food. And I had a chapter in my life where I was hanging out with my friend who worked night shifts. And the only thing to eat then was fried chips. And he tried, come on, have some chips with me. And I was like, no, man, I'd rather just be hungry. But then one night I was really, really hungry. and I had these chips, and I could feel the oil just like coat all over my mouth and through my body. It was a pretty gross experience. And then I was hanging out with him a little while later, nighttime. I was hungry, and I was craving chips, because my body had learned at nighttime this is a solution to your hunger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've seen some people who were short of iron and they craved a steak because in the past their body learned that that was a solution to this feeling. And if they just go and like chow down on like green leafy vegetables with some bell peppers and tomatoes in, and like really just go hard on an amazing salad when they have that craving, and then listen to their body, and then their body can learn, oh, this is actually a solution to that craving. Um, so I hope that if people find themselves having cravings, they look up what will be the solution to that craving and then show their body this is actually a better solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like that. I like that, and that could very well be. The human body is pretty wild, and so is the human mind. That's pretty interesting. One thing I did want to ask, I was curious your thoughts on, like, so I feel like with the research I've done, I feel like it's pretty. I don't know if clear is the word, but I feel confident that you can be as healthy as possible on a well planned vegan diet, eating whole foods, getting in the couple extra supplements we need like B12 and whatnot. But lately I've been getting comments from different anti-vegans challenging ideas because they know like my daughter who's almost 7 has been vegan her whole life. And one thing they brought up that was pretty interesting is um, the idea that we have no essentially well I don't there might be somebody known but nobody that was born vegan and vegan their entire lives like that we don't have any information of anybody that has actually went through their entire lives being vegan to old age. I think we're close to it, and that could be wrong if you happen to know some. I'm mostly what they were saying was kind of trollish, so I didn't really respond to much of it. But it was making me think of how interesting it is that how sort of new it is. The definition, like veganism, even the word existed about for 80,
There
80
are
years
entire
now.
cultures that don't eat animal products. You can go to a Chinese
Hmm.
Buddhist temple, and for thousands of years, their culture hasn't eaten animals.
Interesting. Do you know what I would look up if I was going to look into that? And is it something kind of provable, or I mean, not that you. I guess it's kind of complicated how like you prove anybody could say that they were vegan for whatever. I guess is it
Well,
pretty well accepted?
it's the norm there that the monks are vegan, and that the devout people are vegan, and that the people who attend regularly or the people who attend casually are eating a lot less animals. So to assume that of that culture over thousands of years that
Hmm.
no one has been vegan their whole life just seems completely improbable to me. If I think about other similar cultures like the Jain religion, many of them are vegan. I imagine over the 6,000 years they've been doing their thing, that many of them have been vegan their whole life. Um,
Okay.
and the term vegan and it being done in Western countries, um, uh, I also would imagine that there are many people who've multi-generational vegans, um, that are just not documenting and shouting from the rooftops that
Yeah.
that's what they've done.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I feel what will win people over eventually will be the studies and seeing the lifetime of people. Like you. I feel like having studies is very important versus just anecdotal evidence. But we'll get more and more as time goes by. That some of the trickier things are things that don't get discovered for a while, that we, as time goes by, we discover more things. Like, for instance, I think B12 wasn't even discovered until maybe the 60s. Is that right? And so it's kind of wild. I remember listening to an interview that took place in the 80s from a couple of the founders of veganism from back in the 40s, and they were talking about how they were doing it strictly from a moral stance, and they had a feeling that they would actually have bad health and live short lives. And they were really excited to find out over the years that it ended up being healthy and they had great lives. But it's kind of wild to hear, because, like, so for me, I do it for ethical reasons, but I wouldn't sacrifice my own health. Like, if I had to consume like one fish a month or something to be healthy, that's not the case. But if I had to, I would. And so it is wild that before even the understanding what B12 was, and before knowing if veganism could be healthy, at least to the people doing it, it is pretty wild to me that, like, Donald Watson and his wife and all those other founders of veganism, they were just going to do it without knowing if their health would go down. And that's it's cool, it's noble, but it's wild.
So you said you'd eat a fish if it was affecting your health. But then there's the question, like, if it would make you run 100 meters in zero point 0.1 of a second faster, would you do it? If it would um, increase your IQ by half a point, but also double your chance of heart attack, would you do it? Like,
Mm.
where's that line, and what are the trade-offs you take?
Yeah, I don't know exactly where that line is. I don't know if I would do immoral acts like ending the life of or harming sentient beings to get superpowers. Like, I don't know if I would do it, like, to be able to fly, as cool as that would be. I don't know if I would do that. But if I could sit down and just imagine what I would consider optimal health, that's probably about where the line would be. Again, it would be impossible to know what optimal health is, because it would look like something like comparing it to other humans. If we look at, like, what how fast the healthiest people could run, like, yeah, would I want to be able to run faster than that? For me, it would come down to just how good I felt, how much energy I had, um, being able to look at studies and have an idea that if I wanted to live a full life, live to be like 100 and be very energetic and not living a miserable life, what would this take? And so my goal would be to do it as a vegan, which I plan to do the rest of my life. Um, but one thing that was brought up by Alex O'Connor to Ed Winters was, if going vegan made you go from 6 feet tall to 3 feet tall, and you had to eat I don't know if he said a certain amount of something, but if you had to eat a fish to get back to 6 feet tall, would you do it? I feel like in that case, it seems almost less moral, but I would probably do that one. But yeah, I don't know. What about you? Are there any cutoffs that would make you do it? Are you more like Vegan Gains, where if you had to be a carnivore or omnivore of sorts to survive, would you just sacrifice your own life?
Um, I would find things like oysters if I had to. If
Hmm.
I was on a desert island, literally starving, and the only thing to eat was an animal, and I did that once off, I would I would do it. But if it was any form of ongoing suffering that was needed, I would probably take the compromise. I don't think well, I like to think that I'm trying to be really valuable for the world, trying to help people and make the world better. But I, at the same time, don't think my life is worth that much more than many other lives.
Gotcha. Would it change depending on how the people you had in your life? Like, if you were single with no kids, would you be quicker to sacrifice your own life if you were a carnivore? Where, like with a family, you would maybe do it differently?
Um, as I was contemplating that question, I felt like apologizing to my kids. But actually, no, I hope they'd be proud to see that I would stand by um, doing what's right.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess everybody just has that limit. I don't know. I don't know if that makes somebody more right or wrong. I guess I view an immoral act as immoral no matter what, even if I consider it justified. And so in some cases, I might consider something justified, but it would still be immoral. So even though I think I would find it acceptable to consume animals if I were a carnivore, I would still view it as an immoral, acceptable thing. So
So
yeah.
actually, these questions, the lines you just drew, is not normally how I think about it. I normally think that I want to minimize whatever suffering I'm causing and maximize whatever well-being I'm doing.
Hmm.
So, as I said, if somehow I had to eat animal products, I would find the unconscious animals, and then after that, I would probably eat insects. So I'd find the
Hmm.
way to absolutely minimize any suffering I needed. And I
Yeah.
advocate everyone to do the same thing. Minimize suffering as much as possible. Maximize the good you do in the world.
Yeah.
So I remember when I first went vegan, um, everyone was like, "Oh, you're going to run out of iron, and all of your other um, vitamin and mineral levels are going to be messed up." And my iron levels actually went up after I became a vegan.
Mm.
And I was going and getting regular blood tests, and all of my other levels were just perfectly in the center of the range.
Hmm.
So I remember just feeling as like a health champion that veganism, when done well, is just really good for your body.
Hmm.
Um, and also, I really do appreciate some of the conversations I've had with real anti-vegans. Like I remember some person saying, "Oh, vegans don't get enough choline," and I'd never even heard or thought about choline. So I went
Hmm.
and found vegan choline sources and was having that for a while, and then Dr. Gregor says like uh, lots of choline is actually harmful for you. So now I've basically stopped taking it. But I'm glad that I was brought aware of it. Like people who are attacking the
Yeah.
Zen philosophy can actually help you see more things to consider.
Yeah, definitely. There's been a guy that I've been having conversations with, let's say, named Garland Farms is his YouTube channel, and he's an anti-vegan, and he's into regenerative farming, which from what I know of regenerative farming, I like it a lot more than most other types of farming. But a follower of his, who's been kind of a follower of mine, that's been having conversations with me, recommended that I get a B12 test, specifically called MMA, methylmalonic acid test, and I wasn't familiar with this, but it turns out that most standard B12 tests will test like what's in your system, but not what's bioactive, I guess, and is interesting because these non-vegans led me to a Gregor video of Gregor talking about the importance of the MMA test. And so I had never done this before, and I actually, because of a meat eater on YouTube, I went and got this last week, and it just showed up, and my results are great. My B12 is excellent, and I also at the same time got a vitamin D test because I've had vitamin D issues in the past. From my understanding, most people that live anywhere too far from the equator, whether they eat meat or not, are low in vitamin D. But I had my levels in the past were as low as like 8, I think, and then
Well,
now I'm
before
at 67.
before a couple of hundred years ago, everybody was out during the day working in the sun, and now we all live
Hmm.
in these boxes. So
Hmm.
um, our lifestyles have changed so much in the last 200 years, and that's
Yeah.
where we got the vitamin D from, was being out in the sun.
Yeah.
I just want to encourage everybody, whether you're a vegan or not, whether you believe in the magic of veganism and nature being wholesome, I think everybody should go and have a blood test and get a bunch of their levels checked
Hmm.
every now and then. Um, you may find that your diet just happens to have been lacking something, or if you eat more of a certain thing, it will be beneficial for you. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's something everyone should do. Your body is a machine, learn to tune it and make it as awesome as possible.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, another thing that I guess I'm kind of curious your thoughts on. Not that everybody, I don't think everybody has to constantly look into everything else. A lot of people that judge veganism will say, "Oh, there's so many other issues to look at." But me personally, I like to dabble in all the issues, and since I know you do as well, I thought I might ask you about this. But somebody that was an anti-vegan that was countering the idea of being against fur and some other things. They were talking about how like almost all clothing products are synthetic and uses petroleum to make, and they're just like very bad for the environment. I wasn't sure if you personally, do you have an approach you do when it comes to clothes? Like, do you buy as little as possible, go through thrift shops, or
For a long time, I bought as little as possible, got everything as hand me downs and thrift shops. Um, I definitely haven't worn animal products since soon after I thought I wanted to respect the animals. Um, and I definitely had a time where I went for more natural fibers. So if I could get something out of bamboo or some other fiber, I would. Um, as you're asking the question, I realized that I haven't really researched the environmental impact of synthetic materials. So if I did that and I found out it was really bad, I'd have to go for a lot more um, natural fibers, or just go back to getting everything second or third hand.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's complicated. I don't know the right answers. I always hear conflicting things even when it comes to like ideas of recycling and global warming and all this stuff. So I just like in my mind, in case some of these ideas are accurate, and since I don't have the time to look into it, I just try to use as little as possible of everything. If I go to the coffee shop to get coffee, which I usually don't do because I make it myself, but I'll just have them put cold brew in my mug and not use the plastics there. I try to have as little clothes as possible. I actually like the Einstein approach of not wasting any time thinking about clothes. So, like this shirt you see right here, I have like 5 copies of this exact same shirt, and then the same with a couple different shirts. So you'll see me wear the same thing every time I talk. I just go in the closet, grab my shirt, and I don't. If it gets a hole in it, luckily, my grandma, who's 93, still loves sewing, so she'll sew up the hole in it.
Camera.
And yeah, and I don't, I don't like buying new things that I don't need. Everybody I know likes to buy things, so no judgment. But I don't spend much money. I spend probably outside of like food and mortgage payment and whatnot. I spend anywhere from like $5 to $20 a month, and it only gets towards $20 if I decide I'm going to go treat myself to a movie and see a movie in theaters or something. But usually, I just don't. I don't purchase things because most of the joy I get is spending time with family, going on hikes. So like, yeah, pay for gas, which is probably not great to get in the car to go on a hike. Maybe I could be even better at that and bike around more or something. But yeah.
I definitely had a time in my life where I had the rule to not buy any trash. So when I'd
Mm.
go and buy groceries, I would take a box or my own bag and just not buy any packaging. And I was living alone for part of that. And I remember noticing that my garbage can, it had a thin layer of lentil plastic bags. I ate a lot of lentils and hadn't found a way to get lentils not in the bag. So after months, there was just like a centimeter of bags at the bottom, less than an inch.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a housemate, and then the next week the bin was full. and I was actually really confronted by that so many people make so much trash. But then now I have kids, and the pandemic happened, and we've been really, really careful. We buy a lot of stuff online. We're making
Mhm.
ridiculous amounts of cardboard boxes and plastic trash, and it weighs on me, but I haven't had the time to figure out a solution that fits in with our current priorities.
Yeah.
So, uh,
I think you just have to do the best you can without overwhelming yourself. Because I mean, if you're overwhelmed, you won't be able to do anything. And we have to have the goal of survival and good mental health. Sadly, that gets used as a crutch, and people will just ignore most topics for that reason. But I think. Yeah, I think you just got to do the best you can, and I feel like conversations like this lead you to thinking about things that maybe you don't think about normally. And I feel like every time I talk to you, I think about things I've never thought about. And but the same with most people I talk to. I hear ideas, and it makes me, even if it's things I have thought about, it reminds me like later that day I'll be thinking like, oh yeah, I didn't need to buy this thing, or at least I didn't need to buy it in this plastic and so on.
so I definitely had years where I was allergic to buying stuff. I had contemplated how $1 a day could feed someone in a developing world, and so a taxi
Hmm.
ride, I would uh, I would literally say that trip's going to cost 20 African baby days, and there's no way that I could
Mm.
take that trip. I would rather run than do that. Um, I had a funny relationship to money. So finding a company or a place to work where I felt that it wasn't doing any harm was also really hard for me. So I basically just lived on next to nothing for a long time. And you mentioned mental health. I was actually super happy. Like I was a champion
Mm.
for what I believed in, and I was forced to go out and see people and be social and make the world a better place, and I loved it. Um, where am I going with this? That you can be excited about your ethical choices and do them in a way that makes you happy. Um, mm, and also be kind to yourself if you have a mortgage, or if you have kids, or you have demands that need more attention than you have time to figure out things.
Hmm.
But remind yourself to be excited about positivity. If you do positive changes in a way that make you happy, like you actively get excited about making positive change and it makes you feel good, filling your life with more good is a great thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, I think I might have to get going. We got a little over an hour here. But yeah, it's great talking. Any last things you want to throw out?
Ah, I feel like what I just said was great.
Yep.
Spread the kindness, be excited about the positive change you make.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Great words to live by for sure. All right. Well, I hope you have a good day, and we'll have to talk again soon.
Thank you very much. I'm looking
Yep.
forward to it. Bye,
All right.
everybody.